Hi everyone, we are back, or I am back, to share some ideas for the May 2019 TOK titles. And I guess I'll just jump right back into it. So, the first question, the quality of knowledge is best measured by how many people accept it. Discuss this claim with reference to two areas of knowledge. So the first thing I'm going to start with is the counterclaim. So if this claim is not true, then what is true, right? So the quality of knowledge is not best measured by how many people accept it. If it's not best measured by acceptance, what is it best measured by? This would be a great opportunity to go back to your knowledge frameworks and check out the methodology section, because this is basically saying, how is knowledge gathered in different areas of knowledge? Is it gathered via the scientific method? Is it gathered through personal experience? So it's really the time to return back to the knowledge framework and specifically the methodology section. Another section that you could look at in the knowledge framework is the historical development, because again, you can look at the history, the major moments in history. Traditionally, what are the big moments in the development of an area of knowledge? And that might give you some hints to how the quality of knowledge has been judged. So as usual, it's really great to go back to the knowledge framework. So now that we've addressed the counterclaim, which could be a counterclaim in your essay or just something in your brainstorming process to help you understand the title more, let's break down some of the words in the title. So quality of knowledge, obviously, we need to unpack. And so the knowledge question associated with that is, how do we judge the quality of knowledge in different areas of knowledge? So you could be more specific. How do we judge the quality of knowledge in math? How do we judge the quality of knowledge in history? Again, looking back at the methodology is a good place to start. Best measured is another key term. So basically, we know that one way of measuring it is by looking at acceptance, but at the same time, best measured is a big call, right? So you just need to ask, you might say, yes, that's a good way to measure it, but I don't know if it's the best way. So that's something that you might want to address. Lastly, let's see. Again, measuring would go back to the methodology. In terms of people accepting it, I would break that into two parts. So first of all, acceptance, right? So how do we measure, or how do we understand acceptance? Is accepting the same thing as agreeing with? Just because knowledge is accepted, does that mean it's valid, true knowledge? You could say, I accept that this is knowledge, but I disagree with it, right? If we're thinking about opinions. So maybe with ethics, this might be kind of an interesting place of conflict for you. And then I guess the last major word in the title that we'd want to unpack is people, right? So a huge question I have, and which I would actually say is quite a good knowledge question to guide your analysis in this question is what type of people are we talking about, or does the acceptance of some people matter more than others in knowledge, right? So I guess the question is, are we talking about everyone, or are we only talking about the experts? And so I would definitely say that there's something different about the acceptance by expert knowers versus the acceptance by non-expert knowers. So one resource I would direct you to in this respect is a TED Talk by Sam Harris, and the title is Can Science Answer Moral Questions? And what I like about this TED Talk in connection with this title is basically Sam is talking about how some opinions should matter more in knowledge, and specifically in ethics and morality. So basically he says, while I'm an educated TED talker and scientist, I know nothing about string theory, and I have no place giving my opinion about string theory, whether I like it, not like it, disagree with it, whatever. And he said, I wouldn't want to be part of any string theory group that would have me as a member, right? And then he extends that out to ethics, and he says, we tend to step away from objective knowledge in ethics and morality and say, well, that's their culture, and they can decide to stone women to death if that's their culture. I need to respect their culture. And basically what he says is we need to step away from that and say, no, just like in science, where you can say some people's opinions matter more than others, and that there is some objective truth, there are objective truths in morality and in ethics. And we can all agree that killing your daughter because she was raped, killing her out of shame, is not a high point in human flourishing, and is an objectively bad idea. Just like he said, is a good idea to put cholera in the water. No, it's not a good idea. So while ethics are more complicated than other areas of knowledge, you could argue that there should be some objective truths, if you agree with Sam Harris, and that might be a nice place to just consider things in a different way that you've been considering them before. So just a few more things to question, I guess, in terms of measuring knowledge, right? So considering the relationship between shared and personal knowledge. So obviously we would associate shared knowledge with the acceptance of knowledge, right? Kind of worldwide on a broader scale. But we could ask as well, what role does personal knowledge play in measuring the quality of knowledge? In different areas of knowledge. So are there some areas of knowledge where personal knowledge might play a bigger role in accepting knowledge? And again, this might be a place to return back to the methodology. And then lastly, consider the ways of knowing. Again, what ways of knowing might one use in evaluating the quality of knowledge? And I would definitely say that that differs depending on the area of knowledge. My last suggestion for ways of knowing is pick your examples first, pick what makes sense to you, and then identify the ways of knowing that are kind of inherent within those examples. Don't start with your ways of knowing and kind of list them out depending on the area of knowledge. Extract the ways of knowing from the examples, not from the areas of knowledge. All right, good luck. We'll leave you with this last little nugget. One other thing that you might want to do is consider your own biases in response to this question. So when I explore my biases in response to this prompt, I immediately think, no, of course it's not. Of course the quality of knowledge is not best measured by how many people accept it. Because think of all the examples in history of when something wasn't accepted by people and it was true, like the Galileo and things like that. But upon further reflection of that, very, very, very cliche example, so don't use it, I wonder if those are just really famous paradigm-shifting examples that come to my mind because of availability bias. They're available in my mind because they're such famous examples of when people were wrong about something, that perhaps they're just exceptions to the rule. So I guess part of me would want you and myself to explore this idea further and say, you know what, maybe measuring the quality of knowledge based off acceptance is a pretty darn good idea, because quite often, if you go by the majority, I would say quite often it is right? But it can be very dangerous when we follow it blindly, the majority, as a rule, right? So you might want to explore that as well, because you can have a few different scenarios. You can have when people accept it and it's right. You can have when people accept it and it's wrong, which probably is less common but still happens. Then you can have people not accepting it when it's right, and then you can have people not accepting it because it's wrong, right? So it's interesting to explore the different scenarios.